by Rudransh Mukherjee and Shelly Desai, which is titled Anatomy of a Chapri, Exploring the Decontextualization of Casteist Slurs on Social Media.
Hi, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are. Rudransh, can you share your screen?
Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, it is. You can go like in full screen mode and start presenting.
Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Rudransh Mukherjee. I am an economics and computer science student at Ashoka University. I'm currently pursuing my undergrad, and I'm very excited to present my paper, The Anatomy of a Chapri, exploring the decontextualization of caste slurs on social media. Now, how the presentation is structured is I'll walk you through our research methodology and the research question, and then I'll make an attempt to motivate the research question, and then walk you through the findings and conclude it with a few inferences and what we can do ahead in further research. The research question that we're trying to answer is what context determine the usage of caste slurs on Indian social media platforms, specifically Chapri, and to what extent is this informed by backgrounds of caste and class? Essentially, what that means is that when you do see Chapri being used, what is determining its usage? And the way we went about trying to answer that question is by doing a qualitative study. And we essentially utilize the advanced search functionality of X and the trending page of YouTube to look at videos and tweets which had the word Chapri in their title or the content respectively, and understanding what contexts are they used in, what situations are they used in, and then comparing all of them to come up with a few patterns of, or a few common patterns of the usage of Chapri in social media settings. Now, I would like to talk about the origins of Chapri just for a minute, and just to ensure that all of us have some understanding of the word. It originates from the caste group called Chaparband, and they were criminalized by the British. And the researcher Michael Kennedy also talks about that in his book Criminal Classes. And after independence, they have been decriminalized, but they continue to exist at margins of the society. And the word Chapri has been used as a casteist slur to dehumanize them since decades. But the modern day usage is not as explicitly casteist. Um, Actually, in last year's SMSI conference, Kuntet and Rehman spoke about this when they said that there's a congruence of classist and casteist sentiments when it's being used in social media settings. And Basti Ka Chapri is something which is used very commonly or on Instagram comment sections, which translates to Chapri from Islam. This is not to say that caste and class exist in bubbles, but this does indicate that there's a slight deviation of um, just to motivate the same, I have two images in front of you. On the left, you can see the Urban Dictionary definition of Chapri. For the uninitiated, Urban Dictionary is a crowdsourced dictionary of internet slang, and it you can see the definition is by no means. And while the definition it is there are casteist undertones to it, indicates that it's symptomatic of how it's being used, that it's trying to enforce an aesthetic and trying to enforce a particular way of being on the internet, and with caste and the upper class way of being on the internet. And just to substantiate this, I have a few Google trends to show you. And if you can see that of the search of the word Chapri in YouTube India across the past year, and especially sometime around last year, it really big. This got us asking the question about why is it being used so much, and in a what. Now, the patterns of usage of the word are across three lines. Firstly, aesthetics. There is a very clear demarcation of people who dress a certain way, and this certain way are tight-fitted jeans, dyed hair, bright colored. This aesthetic is not a coincidence. It is the aesthetic of the urban poor, of India. And it is somehow been used as a tool. Like if the content creators dress up in this way, then they are called a chapri. And if you can see this tweet by ex influencer, they are calling themselves a chapri for dressing a certain way. That's not it though, because uh, there has been like it has deviated, like it has not deviated, but it has become an organized way of using an insult. So it's no longer used just to target the urban poor, it is used as an insult. So if you can see these tweets, Shah Rukh Khan or Saif Ali Khan are also being called chapri for their movie roles. And not only this, but it has become a subject of common critique and common parody. So as you can see this video, Normal Day with a Chapri or Three Signs of Chapri Boys, are videos which are parodying these quote unquote Chapris, or which are parodying the urban poors and getting a lot of traction on the internet. The second pattern of usage is that of a certain amount of disdain of social ascendancy. Of capital, or the display of ownership of capital by these urban poor, is looked down upon, and it is being called as chapri behavior. These tweets also show the same, like chapri guys on Instagram stories, Apple users who are chapris, KTM users who are chapris. KTM, especially the bike brand, has now started being associated with this indicates a certain amount of resistance again from this vocal minority, of how there's a certain way of dressing, and if you don't, then you're a chapri. There's a certain way of owning capital, and if you don't own capital in that way, if you have flashy iPhones, if you have KTMs, then it is not okay, then you are going to be called a chapri. The third pattern that we found was the stereotype that these chapris are uncouth towards women, and there's a stereotype that they are disrespectful towards women. And any instance people who are perceived as chapri are seen with women or are seen in bad relationships, it is looked down upon. Again, there is an intent of how urban poor should interact or should in social media or on the internet, and deviations from that are being used as deviations from that, and is being used to kind of put down on deviations. And as you can see in this tweet, someone तीन तीन गर्लफ्रेंड लेके जा रहा है और तुम मैच्योर होकर भी सिंगल हो. So there's almost this pedestal from which users speak from when they are calling someone a chapri. And here there is parodying once again when they're like, oh, this is what happens when you date quote unquote chapris. Now these are the three patterns that we found, but that's not to say that there aren't deviations. And if you're keeping up with IPL and Mumbai Indians, whenever Mumbai Indians loses a and not trends on X. That is because Hardik Pandya has unfortunately started being called a chapri everywhere on social media. The same happened when Elvish Yadav got into controversy. Hashtag chapri started trending. And if you see this music video called Chapri Chapri Na Bhulaya Kar, which is something we again found it as a deviation, claiming the word chapri in a different way. They said, yes, I am a chapri, and it's a music video where they talk about that. So these are a few deviations which don't fit in our patterns, but the broad patterns stay nonetheless. Now, the inferences from these are as follows. Firstly, TikTok has played a very big role in uh, the popularization of the word chapri, because what TikTok did is that it, to a very large extent, democratized content creation in Indian social media settings. And the implication of this democratization was that anyone could make content. But those people who came from a particular caste or class were not welcomed. And this is a manifestation of that unwelcome environment. And there might be a causal link between this social status and that perception. But there's also a decontextualization, which is that it is not being used as a explicit slur to mark out or demarcate individuals from particular castes. It is a classist and a casteist combination. And it is worthwhile asking ourselves what role are social media platforms playing in this decontextualization. Because as Rappo found in their Fill of Language paper, slurs and social prohibitions mutually reinforce one another. And it is worthwhile to ask what role are social media platforms playing in decreasing the social prohibition. And that takes me to the scope for further research. While this is a qualitative paper which looked at 20 videos and approximately 100 tweets, it's not enough to ascertain that yes, algorithms are playing a role. But we did find instances in our small data set in and of itself of users using hashtag Chapri out of context, users or YouTubers using hashtag Chapri out of context only to gain traction. And that makes us wonder what role are platforms playing, and a quantitative analysis is warranted to figure that out. Secondly, this is not an isolated incident. As you can see, I've picked up the same Google Trends, but for three Casteist slurs, Chapri, Chamar, and Kamina. And all three of them have seen an uptick in recent times. And that indicates that this is a phenomena. And it's worthwhile to ask what is what is contributing to this phenomena? Why is it that we are seeing the increased usage of caste slurs on social media platforms? This brings me to an end to the presentation of my paper. I'd just like to conclude with acknowledging that me and my co-author both come from upper caste backgrounds, and our findings are going to be influenced by this by this privilege of ours. So another thing which I hope further research incorporates are lenses from the marginalized, lenses from the ones who are actually at the receiving end of this hit. But other than that, thank you so much for your time. That's all from my end.